Hello everybody, this is Mike with Burns Rubber, and today is an awesome day because we are here in Daniel Baker's 1999 Skyline GTR R34 V-SPEC. Now this thing is an incredible machine and iconic to Okinawa, and literally is the king of all JDM cars, the pinnacle idea of Godzilla. And honestly, we've been trying to shoot this car for so long, and it's been back and forth between little repairs, me traveling, just the timing and everything wasn't right. But I'm so glad that this actually is the last car that I'll be reviewing here in Okinawa Island before I leave. And yes, that is the mystery car that I did mention, and the car that I was talking about in the last video. And here we are in this magnificent machine. So let's go ahead, get started, and see what she could really do. Release the handbrake, put it into first gear, release the clutch, and we're off. Ooh! Now you can tell that this is just a serious machine, and it absolutely has all kinds of power, and you can just hear that turbo spool up. And of course, you do have that legendary RB26 twin turbo variant. Now this one of course is not very stock with the ECU tune and everything else that has been done to it. It's got quite a lot of power. Now what's interesting about this car is it's not necessarily a car that you feel that you're going to be absolutely out of control. It's something that you definitely feel every bit of that control, and it takes a little bit of time. It's a little bit intimidating at first, but once you get used to it, it really is an easy car to drive. Now, it's a lot easier than some of the other car reviews that I had between the RX-7 and the R32, for an example. This one, it particularly has really good handling. It's very surprising that it's somewhat tame for its, aggressiveness that the car actually has. Now the GTR name by itself has a very interesting history because it actually all started from the KPGC-10, which was actually produced from 1969 through 1972. And then the second generation was only produced for 1 year in 1973 because of the bad oil crisis during that time. They actually had such bad sales that they stopped production of the car. And then after that point, after popular demand, they actually brought the car back as the R32 Skyline GTR, which you see from 1989 through 1994. Then from 1994 through 1998, you actually had the R33. Then from 1999 through 2002, you actually had the R34. And then after that point, they stopped production again. Then they introduced the car later, not as the Skyline though, because they actually wanted to produce a completely different car, but only to be named as the GTR that was produced once again back in 2008 to the present time currently. Now it's really interesting to see that because they still kept the R variations, but they actually did not keep the name itself. So that's kind of an interesting thing about Nissan's history, why they did that. Don't know, but they wanted to make two different kinds of cars, and again, that's why the name changes has happened. So let's talk about the R34 itself. Now the R34 is an exciting, iconic machine, and it's something that is very just popular to pop culture. Now, a lot of people don't understand and realize that there actually are a lot of different versions of the R34. Now, it could be mind-boggling to figure out, but there's actually several different versions of the GTR 34, and the first version, of course, is the regular GTR, and then they also had a V-SPEC version, which is, of course, this car here, and then they also had the V-SPEC 2, then they also had a V-SPEC NER. Now the NER was the most hardcore variant out of all of them, and actually introduced a stiffer suspension, bigger turbo with ceramic blades, and it also introduced a couple of different aero packages that made it unique to its own. So it's just a really awesome car, and they actually have a lot of different types of parts that they put into there. So of course, having the hardcore version, they only made a few of them, and then beyond that point, they actually made one more version. They only made about 19 of these cars, and that was actually known to be the Z-Tune. Now the Z-Tune is a very, very rare car, and if you could ever find one, they're expensive. They're not some just cheap GTR, which mind you, no GTR R34 is cheap back stateside, but they're selling, I think last time I saw an auction, around $430,000. So really, really expensive. Now, of course, the V-SPEC is a awesome car, and kind of what started their high performance division of the GTR, and you can kind of consider it as similar to some ways as the Nismo addition to the current GTR. This had its own special parts into it as well. So the V-SPEC itself is the more track variant of the regular GTR, and of course it had many different parts. Now, some of the things that V-SPEC actually included are 3 additional oil coolers, an active rear differential, as well as you still have the 4-way steering on the vehicle itself, and then of course you do have all the rest of the other parts between the suspension components, and you also have some exterior body parts, and you have the rear diffuser, front diffuser, so you had a couple aero packages that went with it, and of course you have this awesome wing as well too. So that's something that you definitely have in this car that is different from the regular GTR, and I just love the menacing look of the V-SPECs. V-SPEC 1, V-SPEC 2s, both of them just look magnificent. Now, before any of these upgrades that you see on the car were ever started, this car has a very interesting story, and if you ever get to meet Daniel, he's a really awesome guy, a really fun guy to talk to, and he'll kind of tell you the history of the car itself. But really, it has an interesting one, because when he first saw this car, this is actually the first GTR he has ever ridden in, and this was at the time when he was actually 16 years old when he first came to Japan, and you know, he was just so excited about this car and hit up the guy that actually owned this particular car and had such a fun blast with the car that at the end of the drive he said, okay, well, you know, if you get a chance, I don't know how I'm going to do it, I don't know how I'm going to buy it, but if there's any way of having this car up for sale, let me know, right? So many years down the road, what happens is the military guy that actually owned this car particularly shipped the car to California and tried to actually hold it there and keep it there, but because it was kind of under those gray log, which, you know, the government eventually ended up finding out and wanted to end up crushing the car, he sent the car back to its actual country of origin or location, which was Okinawa, Japan. And so when Daniel got a glimpse of the fact that the guy was trying to sell it, he actually ended up hitting him up and actually shipped the car back, and was so excited because, you know, it was the GTR that he actually remembered shipping out. Now, of course, different story. Once the car actually came here, what actually had to happen was that the car actually was in pieces. It had the engine out of it, it had all the components out of it, and literally this, again, you just had the engine literally sitting on the crate. And so he went through a whole process of rebuilding this car. It took him literally about 1.5 years to get all the parts together, the turbos and all the upgrades to get this car right. And he actually still has these special Z-Tune parts that you cannot even get a hold of unless if you even have a Z-Tune title on this car particularly. And so, you know, it's just really cool that he just really gone through the dedication and time to get this thing right, and just all the parts and all the money, all the sweat and tears and blood and everything that went into this car. You could totally feel that it is just a fine-tuned machine and something that was well established and well built from him. Now, this car has a lot of good little modifications, of course, with Daniel pouring in all the time for this car. It has a lot of just the premium parts. Now, of course, some of the stuff that you have for the exterior bits of the car, as well as you do have some of the stuff for the gauges, and you actually, for performance parts internally, the turbos are, of course, not the stock turbos. Now, this car, stock-wise, was pushing around 360 horsepower, and now it's estimated putting around 640 horsepower. Matter of fact, it's ingesting about 1.5 bar into the car itself. So, you know, it actually does have the aftermarket HKS 2530s 47mm and a 60mm turbo attached to this thing. And also attached to that, you do have a lot of the Z-Tune parts, and you do have this full titanium HKS Kansai exhaust system. Man, does that exhaust sound so good. I mean, it's not too loud to where it's just like shattering my eardrums, but it's got just enough loudness that I just love hearing that grunt out of the car. Oh man, this is so great. Just listen to that exhaust note. Oh man, that thing sounds so good. Now let's talk a little bit about the exterior bits and parts of the car. Now when you just look at it from any angle, the thing just looks super aggressive, and it's one of those things where it really just truly screams Godzilla. You look at it, you just have these awesome body panels, and you have this significant arches, and you have, you know, just this really muscular look, and I think that's what I love about it. And in some ways, I consider this car to be the muscle car of Japan, because it just has such a beautiful lines in the car, and it has, again, just the big arches, and it just, there's just something serious about it when you look at it. Now, of course, his is very special because it actually does have the Z-Tune components on the exterior, so you actually have a lot of the Z-Tune parts, and you have carbon fiber bits everywhere. And you know how much I love carbon fiber. It has carbon fiber literally just everywhere on the car. And of course, you have the carbon fiber hood, as well as you have that awesome Z-Tune wing, and you do have the diffusers, and you do have just a lot of the Z-Tune parts. And Z-Tune, yeah, not just your average Joe can get a hold of it. You actually have to have a special Z-Tune title to be able to even get a hold of the parts to be put in the car. So really, it's just such a special car to be able to get a hold of that, and it's just really, really cool. And you also have these really nice rims that's of course wrapped with the brake system, and that is the LMGT4 Nismo rims. Now these are again the iconic rims to the V-Specs, and definitely used throughout all of the GTRs, but that rim is actually also particularly wrapped with Yokohama Advance tires, and those things just grip so well. And right now it's kind of crappy weather, and it was funny because, you know, we yesterday had perfect weather and everything, and then just all of a sudden just starts raining. But that's Okinawa for you. That's any island for that matter. It just basically starts raining randomly as soon as it's sunny. So unfortunately, I can't romp on it too hard, and I can't turn around corners too fast, which I will not do that anyway because I respect every driver's cars. But at the same time, you know, having the four-wheel drive system and the active four-way steering gives me that confidence to go around the corners, even if it does have a bit of a damp on the actual road. Now, interior is an awesome place to sit, and as you can probably tell that it's not necessarily the stock seating, because of course the V-Specs actually came with a gray interior. It's kind of like a charcoal gray cloth interior. This one actually is fully leather wrapped, and actually this was a custom job done by Robson in Tokyo, and they actually developed all of the seating and upholstery for the top secret car. So this actually has everything that was redone with the leather, and it just looks awesome, and everything is just like nicely new condition, and these buckets feel so good. Now, it's not as aggressive as the Zeta 3s that I've tested out before, as you probably saw that one last video in the RX-7, but it's aggressive enough to where it can definitely keep me in the corners and feel really, really comfortable. Now, also, another thing that you notice about the car is that it has these awesome gauges, and it's iconic to the 34 is this center cluster gauge right here. It has all the map out readings between the oil pressure, the indicator, has the water temperature, exterior temperatures, the boost pressure, and it has all of the things that that make it pretty awesome by showing all the gauges. And you can also toggle through the gauges and actually show you different stats and different things on the car itself. Also, what's really nice is you have the special Nismo cluster here, which actually does have a bigger speedometer actual rating than the original ones. Now, the original ones had up to 185 kilometers. This one goes up to 320 kilometers. So yeah, that's closer in the neighborhood around the 200 mile per hour mark, if you would translate that over into the conversions. but it's just awesome to have this cluster, and it's got like this nice white with the red accents going on. It's just a really, really cool thing to look at. And also what's really neat about this cluster is the fact that it actually, from 1,000 to 3,000 RPM, they're all like nice and tight so that you can actually look at your RPM range, and then from 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9 all the way to its red line, it actually spans across. So it's just a really cool, unique cluster to take a look at, and it's just such a nice interior. And again, you just have this like this Nismo parts right here, so it's like Nismo everything, and especially the shifter knob feels so good in your hands, just a real small little tight notch, and the grooves just feel so good in the car. Now I think overall this car is awesome. I had so much fun with this, and you know, if you've never, you know, checked out a GTR, and you can check out the 32s now because they're available stateside, but please do me a favor and go try out the Skylines. They're such a legendary machine, and if you don't know much about them, just read it. There's so many different facts, and they're so renowned in so many different movies. And of course, Paul Walker from Fast and the Furious made this car very famous, and of course, just everything that is this car is pop culture is just awesome. I mean, you absolutely have all the fans out there for this car, and you know, truly, it's such a blessing to be able to drive this car today. And honestly, it's just, you know, such a surreal experience from seeing it from a poster, which I never ever thought that I would ever drive this car here, and even come to Japan for that matter. And this was the greatest send-off for me from Okinawa, Japan, is to be able to drive the most iconic car, which was the GTR R34. Oh my gosh, the handling is just, oh, so good. The gear shifting, oh, that turbo, oh my gosh, this thing, it just feels so good. Oh man, this thing sounds like Godzilla. It eats, breathes, just go around the corners. Yep, yeah, it literally just is a Godzilla and a half. Oh man, what a fire-breathing machine. Woo-hoo-hoo. That pull, and I'm just in third gear right now, but the pull is just tremendous. Oh man, there is literally no lag whatsoever. Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. This is so much fun. Woo-hoo-hoo. I want to thank you guys so much for watching this awesome review on this 1999 GTR R34 V-SPEC 2, the Godzilla, the most iconic JDM car of Japan. And I really want to thank Daniel Baker so much for allowing me to drive it here today and be able to privilege and the trust to drive something like this magnificent thing. And also, if you do want to check out more of his car, I will put his Instagram on the description below, so you can take a look at that. So that is Okinawa GTR 34, and that is something that I will make sure to post that. And also, if you want to find out more of the parts that he used for this car, I only mentioned a few of the parts, but if you do want a full list, also it is in the description here below. But also, I want to thank you guys so much for everything that you guys do for your support, watching my channel, commenting, like, and those kind of things. And I would really appreciate it if you guys could like this video if you do like it, and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, to make sure to keep up with all the next content coming. Now, I did mention this is the last review I am doing of this car, and one of the last clips that I'll have here of being on island, but I'll make sure to follow the channel because there's a lot of exciting things happening, and there is still a mystery car. I'm not going to reveal that yet, but it is a really cool car, that really cool car build that I'm going to be doing here in the near future. And I wanted to thank you guys for all the support, and to all my Okinawa friends and all the people that have been with their groups and car shows and everything. Thank you so much for the experience that you've given me here, and I literally is so blessed to be around the people that love cars like this, and just a small tight niche community like that. And really, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you guys so much, and I really hope that I can stay in touch with everybody here in Okinawa, because you've been so fantastic with everything that I've been doing with cars and the channel itself. So thank you for allowing my channel to grow. I will see you stateside, and see you again next time.